Today we're going to start by setting up the road for our prospective city. To begin, you'll need a ruler, a pencil, and a big piece of paper. First, start by writing your name and your class, and then flip it over. Okay, to begin, we need to create our horizon line and vanishing point. The horizon line is where the sky touches the ground. To find where we should put our horizon line, we are going to measure up on our paper 5 inches. So the easiest way to do that is to find the 5 on the ruler, put the 5 at the bottom of your paper, and then make a little mark. By doing this in a couple of places across our paper, it will help to make sure that we have a nice, straight, and even horizon line. Do that 5 or 6 times across your paper. Okay, then we're going to lay our ruler on top of those little dashes that we just made, and we're going to connect the dots. Please make sure that you're drawing lightly because perspective requires quite a bit of erasing. If you draw too dark, you're going to have some nasty ghost pencil lines on your paper. That's not what we want. Okay, so we've got our horizon line. It's nice and even. It's not crooked. I have 5 inches down here at the bottom of my paper. Okay, now this paper here is 18 inches wide. So we are going to measure in halfway, which half of 18 is 9. So if you line your ruler up with the edge of your paper over here, then we can come over 9 inches, and we're just going to make a little dot. A very, very tiny dot. Okay? This is our vanishing point. This is where all of our lines will descend to when doing the sides of our building. Okay, our next step is to create the road. So the road is going to start at our vanishing point, and it's going to open up as it comes down to the bottom of our paper. This is also going to give us the illusion of depth. All right, so when I do my road, I like to make sure that it's in the middle. So I would like for you to measure over, let's say 7 inches on both sides of your paper. So I'm measuring over. I put my ruler here on the edge of my paper, and I'm coming over to the 7, and I'm making a little mark. Over here on the other side of my paper, I'm going to put the 7 on the end of my paper over here, and I'm going to make a little mark. So now I've made 2 marks coming in 7 inches from both sides of my paper. Next, I'm going to, and it's okay if it's approximate, I'm going to run my line straight through those little dashes that I made, right down to the bottom of my paper. Do that on both sides. Okay, now I have a road. Let's straighten that up a little bit. All right. I should mention, when we're using the ruler, it's really important to make sure that you hold a firm pressure on your ruler, so as you're drawing your line, your ruler isn't scooting one way or the other. We want nice straight lines. Next, we're going to create a sidewalk. Okay, so I'm going to put my ruler on that line, and I'm just going to do a ruler width for this. So I'm going to put my ruler on my line, and I'm just going to make a little dot down here at the bottom so that I have a 1 ruler space between my first road line and where my sidewalk's going to be. Then I'm going to line that dot up with my vanishing point, and I'm going to draw a line all the way to the bottom of my paper. All right, again, over here on the other side, I need a ruler width. So I'm lining my ruler up. I'm not drawing a line on this side of my ruler. I'm just using that as kind of a place marker to see how wide my sidewalk needs to be. Next, I'm going to line my ruler up again with my vanishing point and that little dash that I made. And I'm going to, once again, take my line all the way off the bottom of my paper. Okay, so that's all we're going to use our vanishing point for at this time. Next, we're going to create some sidewalk down here on the very, very foreground of our picture. The part that is the closest to the viewer. To do that, I want it to be a ruler width, since that's what I went with here for sizing. So I'm going to line my ruler up on my paper. I'm lining this side up with the bottom. I'm going to hold it down, and this line that I'm starting here, I actually want to bring it off of that first road line, and I'll show you why here in a minute. This just gives us kind of a jump start on adding the lines for our sidewalk. So go ahead and continue that line off the side of the paper. We're going to do the same thing over here on the other side. Line the ruler up. Again, we're going to be drawing over from this inside road line all the way to the side of our paper. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and add in our sidewalk lines, and to do that, I'm lining my ruler up with my sidewalk line here because I want to make sure that these are nice and straight. If you start tilting them one way or the other, it's not going to look correct. Okay, so I'm going to line my ruler up here. I'm going to push both sides of my ruler up so that it's nice and even. It's still straight. I can use this line here as a reference. I can look up here at my horizon line as a reference. I want to make sure it's nice and straight, and I'm going to draw a line right underneath my ruler. Okay, so this is going to be creating those sidewalk lines that's going back towards our vanishing point. As things move back into space, they get smaller and smaller. So each time that I scoop my ruler up to create my sidewalk line, I want there to be just a little less space than the line that I previously did. All right, scooch it up, checking all of those visual points to make sure it's nice and straight, and draw your horizontal line. The further we go back, the closer they seem to get. Eventually, they will be so close together that we can't really see them anymore. And we can go ahead and just stop there. Okay, so adding those horizontal lines really kind of creates that illusion of depth. Okay, we're going to be creating lines on this sidewalk as well, but there is a slight change. Since these lines here need to go back to our vanishing point, they need to be descending lines to the vanishing point. I'm going to line my ruler up on my vanishing point, and I'm going to, as I do each line going over, I'm going to leave this on my vanishing point, and I'm just going to keep rotating my ruler out towards the outside of my paper. These sidewalk lines here should be relatively spaced pretty close in size, so try to keep that consistent. But I am going to just rotate my ruler as I go out to the side, and that's it. So these lines down here on the bottom of your sidewalk should utilize that vanishing point. Okay, same thing over here. Line your ruler up, draw that line. Make sure whenever you are using your vanishing point that your ruler is touching it. Perspective is all about rules and consistency. As long as you are following those rules of perspective and you're keeping those lines nice and straight, you will have a very successful drawing. Okay, one last thing to make our sidewalk look really three-dimensional. Here on the inside, we are going to create a little bit of a curb. Okay, so a step up from the street. So right on the inside here, I'm going to create a thin line. It does not need to be very thick. Same thing over here. A thin curb. Okay, now I'm going to flip my ruler so that it is vertical, and I'm going to create a perpendicular line to all of these horizontal lines. Perpendicular means that it's going to meet at a 90-degree angle. So my ruler is straight up and down. Don't let your eyes trick you and have you kind of put your ruler at a diagonal. Okay, these are not descending lines. They have got to be vertical and perpendicular. So when we draw this, I have a right angle right here, but now it looks like I have a curb and I'm stepping up onto the sidewalk. All I'm doing is scooting my ruler over until it meets up with that next sidewalk line, going nice and slow, and trying to stay as accurate as I can. If you start to turn your ruler, which happens quite a bit, you can see kind of how it almost looks like it's a slight slope up onto the sidewalk. You want this nice sharp corner. Okay, so anytime we've got an incorrect line, we're just going to erase and correct. It's the good thing about working with pencil for this. Draw lightly so that you can erase those mistakes. So once again, I need a vertical line. Vertical, it needs to meet my horizontal line at a perpendicular or 90-degree angle. And I'm going to draw my lines straight down. This will give me that appearance of a nice sharp curb, or ledge, I should say. Okay, so there we go. Now we have a three-dimensional sidewalk. If you'd like to as well, you could add the lines going up the middle of your street. To do that, we're going to draw two lines down the center, going to our vanishing point, trying to make sure that both sides of our street are about the same size. Okay, then we're going to come in and add a horizontal line, making sure that it's straight across. We have quite a few lines on our paper now that we can use as kind of a visual cue to see whether or not we're making nice straight lines. But they're going to get smaller and smaller and closer as we get closer to our vanishing point. Okay, then I'm going to come in and erase every other one, and this will create that kind of dotted strip that goes down the center of the highway or the road. And eventually, as we get back here, we'll just erase a couple little places just like that. Okay, when that's done, you are ready to start adding your buildings.